Just to briefly summarize this, so there were experts in the development here in games, Susanne Tepe from Occupational Health and Safety, Frank Buchamp and John Wakefield from Property Construction and Project Management, Fiona Peterson, Learning and Teaching, and a team of 5 really talented ex-graduates from the Bachelor of Design in Games here at RMIT. And together we have grappled with this concept of making something boring fun, like designing a game for occupational health and safety. Now, I don't know what your experience about occupational health and safety is, but I can tell you a few anecdotes. Since I'm in a position where I have to remind people that they need to do their OH&S induction here in this company, there are various talks that we have about that. It's like, oh, did you do your OH&S induction? Yeah, I've done it in 5 minutes. It was great. I just went to the end and I did the multiple choice test. And they were able to ace that, and so they got the certificate and they were finished with that. And this kind of a thing where you actually skip the instruction is something that is quite common. And people find that rewarding, that they can cheat the system and get away with just doing what they have to do to pass the test and basically declare themselves as competent, something that they have done. But occupational health and safety is important, and we've kind of looked at a particular industry here, the construction industry, in which the Australian construction industry represents 9% of the Australian workforce, and like 11% of all the serious workers' compensation claims occur in construction. And there's a huge fatality rate in construction particularly, which is more than twice the rate of all other industries. Now, to address that problem, the Office of the Australian Building and Construction Commissioner have established a construction induction process known as the white card training. And everybody whoever wants to go on a tier 1 construction site needs to be able to do that, or they need to complete the white card training. And in Victoria, it's a legislated requirement that you attend a 1-day workshop. And you do an open book exam at the end. And as a result of that, you're then given a white card, and with that white card you're then allowed to enter construction sites. So that doesn't actually only apply to builders, it also applies to people who work to architects and other professions, carpenters, and people generally who need to go on a construction site. Even if we as researchers want to go on a construction site, we have to have this card. And Susan and I have done the training, the OH&S training, and if you ever want to see a class where people are disengaged and bored, that's the class to go. This is the class where people do everything else rather than paying attention. They check their phones, they fall asleep, they talk to the neighbors. Everything else is more interesting than the OH&S training. And there was a study done by Harfield, which was about learning styles, a learning style profile for construction students. And that study has actually revealed that students are often disengaged and that they tend to be surface learners, and that they have a strong preference towards activity-based classroom teaching, strong instructor monitoring, structured course content, graphical representations with as little as possible text. So maybe the reason why construction students are disengaged is because the way we teach them is just not the right method. So to address that, we looked at games. And I mean, games, if you've heard, games can induce a feeling of flow. Flow, Csikszentmihalyi basically defines flow as the feeling of a complete and energized focus in an activity with a high level of enjoyment and fulfillment. But games can also provide a highly structured environment, which was important in the context of this game. With games, like many games start with a tutorial, you can break down very complex tasks into smaller tasks that are more manageable. You can adjust to the individual pace of the learner, so you can basically move fast if someone learns really quickly, or you can move slower if that's necessary. You can provide continuous and immediate feedback, and the game doesn't get tired of giving you that feedback, even if you do the same thing wrong 10 times. Facilitates exploration of multiple solutions, and it's also something that's mentioned positively in a firefighting game by Delgado and Davis, where students actually said, oh, well, it was really, really great to be able to try out different things. Also, Prensky says it's useful in a context where learning is perceived as complex or boring, or bogus, and G say that games are able to trigger a deep motivation for learning. So games are kind of serious games in this context are really interesting because they require players to formulate a hypothesis of, well, how there's a problem, how do I solve it, what have I got at my disposal, and they need to, and it requires them to evaluate the outcome. So they've done something, they've seen the outcome. Well, sometimes you replay it again because you're not satisfied with the outcome that you've achieved, and all of these things are important in the context of learning outcomes, motivation, and retention of material that learning and teaching people found. Now, I want to talk a little bit about the design of the game, and I think the best way is to actually show you the game. So we've got it running here. So the game's called Trouble Tower, and it's been created in Unity. Now, someone has changed the resolution again. Can we change the resolution again? Sorry. Was it's about 960, yeah. Okay, great. So the game's been developed in Unity, and there's a PC, a Mac version, and an iPad version, and the iPad version has been released for free now, so you can download it from the App Store. So the game basically starts with your characters, and they're like lemmings on the construction site, and there's hammers flying from the sky. Well, why not? And we basically, it's a task of the player to make the work safe and to help these workers become productive, because they're not productive at the moment because they're all obstructed by the hazards that are in this game. So down here you see your occupational health and safety controls that you can use, and I better save this guy here from getting hit by the hammer. So here we've got the PPEs, the personal and protective equipment, and like there's a hard hat that I can give him. So, and as a result, this worker becomes productive and he builds part of the building. Now the game is designed that you can basically apply every OHS control to every character in the game. So if I feel like I can solve this problem of him falling into a hole by a fire extinguisher, I can click on the fire extinguisher, and if I click long, I get the fire extinguishers that exist. And I don't know how well you know fire extinguishers, but the one with the black stripe, that's the CO2 one. Then the one with the blue stripe, that's the foam one, and it's for flammable liquids. And then there's the water one that has got no stripe, and the dry chemical one. and that one has the white stripe. That's for electrical fires. So anyway, so I can give this fire extinguisher now to this guy here, and he's happily going to fire extinguish away, but that doesn't really save him from the hole. So for that we need a barrier. And now this level is complete, and as like a design problem, like in the OHS training, we teach students that they need to report every single incident, every single hazard that they find in an OHS reporting form. So we wanted to reinforce that concept that you have to report a hazard. But we didn't actually, and that was a bit tricky, we didn't really want the players to have to report every single time after they have solved the hazard. So what we've done is we've put it at the end of the level and created this button, report to supervisor, to make this kind of process clear. And then you get an incident report about what happened in the game and what you have done to prevent the hazard, or to resolve the hazard. And then it continues on to the next level. And this goes on over 6 levels in the game. It takes about half an hour for someone to complete the game. And like here we've got here we need to use a crane, and you need to be quick. Like it's for the player, it's kind of, they need to think about these hazards, but at the same time there's a slight bit of time pressure. So here on the side there's a productivity bar, so the productivity isn't very good at the moment. And if too many of the NPC characters get injured, the hazards actually highlight. And then you know, it's like this guy here highlights now, so we know, okay, he has to basically this hazard has to be resolved. So he gets his headphones, and the other guy, we've got the fire extinguisher, but now he ran away. Anyway, Susan is going to tell you a little bit more about the controls, and then we have also some preliminary tests that we can talk about.
Playing the game.
I complete. Okay. I'll resolve that one then.
The design of the game was quite challenging, and ultimately we had to figure out how we would know if that was actually achieved. So we had a whole series of tests that we've done for people. We've set up a study design that allowed people who were doing the construction induction to take our tests. And one of the biggest challenges was, how do you figure out if someone's become better at recognizing hazards? In the real world. So that was a major issue for us. We finally decided it would be through looking at a series of photographs of construction sites with some hazards on them. And so they were expected to spot the hazards and tell how many they saw. And we also ran that through a set of experts. And so what we were testing was, did the people who did the game or did construction induction at all, were they better at spotting hazards, or as good at spotting hazards as the experts? So we've done a bit of comparison. We haven't finalized all the statistics, but it does look like people who do the game, we let them play the game in the middle of the construction induction course, that if you play the game, you are better at spotting hazards. You'll spot more of them, and you'll get more of them the way the experts do. Now, I'm not going to pretend to tell you this is a strong statistical correlation, but it does look better than not doing anything. And if nothing else, the students were much more deeply engaged. We have wonderful feedback, and we did an engagement questionnaire too, and they were very willing to tell us that it was a great game. It was very interesting. There were no killer faults. There were, it was easy to play, but it was a bit challenging. And the interviews afterwards were all very, very encouraging, particularly for the context in which we were playing this game. So we're reasonably happy with the fact that it's better than what they were doing, if nothing else. So, okay, where'd that come from? What did you do with that one? So what we did was make sure that we had, our construction induction students seemed to be much happier. They were able to at least add to their learning, because we weren't planning to replace the construction induction training with our game. You do actually still have to take the course. But it was, as a learning and teaching exercise, it was very good to support the construction induction. And we're reasonably happy that it helps people develop their own learning pathways because of the different choices they have, because they are able to spot the hazards. They've got a lot of different comments. And I'll let Stefan have the last word, since he's there distracting everybody with the background.
Going back to the PowerPoint. Basically, what we thought is, well, wouldn't it be nice if people got hooked on a game that was actually educational for a change? And so with this game, we've tried to create this game about hazard identification for the construction industry, support the learning and teaching of a construction safety induction as an activity. We didn't want to replace the training. It was just simply something that people could do as part of the training. And that's something that provides players with a choice to create their own learning pathways. So the game's available on the App Store. Just search for the name Trouble Tower. You can download it now. So at the moment the preview version is up. The final version will be released for free in a couple of days. And you can also find us on Facebook. So thanks for that. That's all.
Well done.
Thank you. Questions for Stefan and Susanne?
Have you had interest from any other industries around this design that could be used in a hospital sim and things like that?
Well, we've shown it to people at BP, and they said, "Oh, it's a really great game, but it's not about being an oil refinery." So having these games requires a really high degree of contextualization. Yeah. So as a next step, we're looking at a game where you can import the actual construction site you're working on and play in that construction site. But so to contextualize the learning.
In addition, virtually everybody in the profession, so any of the OHS people I've shown this to, have just been absolutely delighted with it, as a supplement to their own, because you do this generic white card assessment and then you have a specific induction to your own workplace, and they're all saying, well, you hear the same thing every time. Anything that's different would be good. But in addition, I've had environment people saying, oh, gamifying recycling stuff, or looking at, just every time you show it to somebody, there's a new idea. So it's.
Did you say that there was better recall of what they'd learnt through this game as opposed to normal testing of OHS standards? I can't remember if you mentioned them.
What we looked at was, so we did a test with the photographs before people took the construction induction course. So whether you were going to play the game or not. Then we had half that group play the game, and then they took the photograph test again. And so we were initially looking just were they able to spot more hazards, and it's slightly more if you play the game. But we wanted to have a retention component. So a month later, does it let you remember things better? Unfortunately, we've had a very low return rate when we send people a note saying, would you like to take this test again to see if you want to do it? And we've been underwhelmed by people with interest in that. So we're hopeful that we'll get a few more people to come along, but at this point, the concept was there, just not much reality.
Is there any, because this is something that I've looked into and been discussing with an industry that I do some work for, and one of the ideas that I been discussing with them was the competitive aspect, because actually in the mining industry, they have to renew their, accreditation. I think it's 12 monthly. And I thought it would be great to actually take the gaming element and to, create a competition around, amongst the workers, because, they are blokey blokes, but they're no doubt game players, and this might encourage them to really learn and, improve their knowledge, so they can, and potentially set up a leaderboard. Is that something you'd...
Well, there is some way of, there's a productivity bar that you could do, and you could, the scoring is if you really wanted to. But this is so elementary. I mean, it might be boring, but those of us who actually like it, who actually work in the field realize that occupational health and safety is actually a complex adaptive system, and it really does need more than just this. So, there's incredible potential to turn this into a multiplayer game, not this, but put in a multiplayer game, which would have a bit of competition. And that's what Stefan was talking about, where we could have, the background of something being built, and then you could have the, one team or the plumbers, and the other team or the project managers, and then you get your scab workers in there, or, any combination of things like that. The opportunity is huge. We just need to find somebody to fund it, that's all.
Oh, yes, the eternal problem.
Sorry. Sorry, do we have time for one last question?
Yeah, just on funding, I think, can you describe any costings that you might have, or costs?
This game cost about $150,000 to make, and it was funded by an RMIT Learning and Teaching Investment Fund. And the underlying question for that was basically to find out whether what you learn in a game like this can actually be transferred in the real world. And as Susan said, we found that yes, people can make the connection, even though this has a rather comic-y animated style. People can still recognize the hazards in the real world and also perform better in the tests. Yeah.
One last one.
Very quickly, please.
So if you get funding, do you plan to continue to develop it so it can be adapted by...
Yes, that's the next logical step, the next step forward, to actually make the customization to a particular industry easier. And the keyword, the principal areas we need to look at there are basically the models that are created of buildings, and also the information that comes with it, the building information management system. Oh, thank you.
Thanks.